I want to spend just a few moments talking about why the commitment today isn't just about $4 billion and 75,000 homes. That is extraordinary, and I want to make sure we remember that. But maybe I could spend a few minutes talking about why this goes well beyond, the impact of this goes well beyond just the 75,000 homes that this commitment will be able to reach. But before I do that, I just want to spend a moment. One of the reasons why I really personally wanted to be here today is that this day feels a little bit like Groundhog Day for me. Literally 5 years ago this month, I stood with the leaders of enterprise to make an announcement of a $1 billion promise to New York City's housing plan. And the parallel for me isn't just being able to stand up and celebrate an extraordinary day with enterprise, but also that earlier that year, the mayor had made what many people thought was an extraordinary commitment to the largest affordable housing plan of any city in the country. But there was some skepticism, frankly, about whether it was possible for the public sector to achieve big things. And we are in a moment in this country where that skepticism remains, and in fact, in some ways has grown stronger. And it isn't just about local government, obviously. It's about whether the federal government can be a positive force for change. We also have just announced, not at the city level this time, but at the federal level, a big and difficult to achieve commitment in the recovery through retrofit commitments that the Vice President Biden made this very week, in fact, just on Monday, committing the federal government to do really, truly transformative things in this world of housing and energy efficiency. And so I could not be more thankful once again for enterprise stepping up and showing the world that this is not just words. This is a commitment that not just the government is behind, but that the private sector is behind, the nonprofit sector is behind, the philanthropic sector is behind, and that this can be achieved. And so I think this is an enormously important day and one that feels very familiar to me, given the type of leadership that I've seen enterprise show in the past. And what are you saying to the world? You are saying that with this effort, not only that we can truly develop a clean energy economy that reduces our dependence on foreign oil, at the same time that it saves consumers money and creates millions of new green jobs, that's not just the future. You are clearly and unequivocally saying that the future is here today and that it is here to stay. You are also saying that building a clean energy economy starts not only in our laboratories or on our roads, but also in our homes and our buildings, which together contribute 40% of our carbon emissions in this country, more than the transportation sector alone. We are also saying that in this new role that I'm playing at HUD, that we see things exactly the same way. We're investing about 1/3 of the $14 billion commitment that we got in the Recovery Act in the greening of America's public and assisted housing stock. Just one example, we've just completed a competition and awarded $600 million in capital funding to housing authorities, competitive grants that they are using to increase the energy efficiency of public housing, saving money for the taxpayer while at the same time protecting the environment and creating jobs. That's also why we are going beyond just the funding that we got in the Recovery Act, billions of dollars of weatherization funding that the Department of Energy has, but has been very, very difficult to use in multifamily housing in the past. That's why one of the first things that I did was sit down with Steve Chu and hammer out with the Department of Energy an MOU that would allow that weatherization funding to flow to affordable multifamily housing more easily. And while barriers still remain to that, we are working very closely with communities around the country to make sure that weatherization dollars can flow to affordable housing as well as single-family housing that's been the traditional target of it. I will say, and this is not just about a new day at HUD, HUD's partnership with Enterprise is longstanding, and I want to recognize Ted Toon and so many of the other HUD folks are here today that have really been pathbreakers on this. Our Office of Assisted Housing Preservation and Development was developing its green initiative many years ago. It looked to the green communities example that Enterprise had put out there and turned to senior enterprise leaders as advisors and partners on that effort. It was at a 2007 Enterprise-sponsored conference on green affordable housing that HUD first publicly announced the launch of the Mark-to-Market Green Initiative. This led directly to the Recovery Act's Green Retrofit program for multifamily housing, a $250 million investment to make our privately owned assisted housing more sustainable. And I'm happy to say that within just the next few weeks, HUD will begin making the first awards under that Green Retrofit program. So thank you to Enterprise again for the leadership that you have provided. In every way, Enterprise has been a catalyst and a partner, pushing the federal government not to be a follower when it comes to green and affordable homes, but in fact to be a leader, to lead the private market. And you have long been ahead of the curve when it comes to using data in innovative ways to show us what's working, what isn't, and what we need to do differently. It was in Seattle, in fact, that Doris and Enterprise worked with then County Executive Ron Sims, now our Deputy Secretary at HUD, to prove with their Breathe Easy Homes initiative that housing can create major cost savings in the area of health, improving air quality, and reducing instances of childhood asthma as well. Next Generation Enterprise Green Communities builds on those lessons learned from that demonstration, like the Breathe Easy Homes, and takes that approach to the next level, showing us how housing can actually drive down costs at the same time that it improves the lives of low-income families and neighborhoods. In fact, as you've already heard, the data today proves unequivocally that these investments cost relatively little, under 2%, and in fact save more than they cost up front, which is a critical piece in doing this. We spend $5 billion a year at HUD on utilities. So think about the importance of that lesson poses for us. But more than that, and this is really what I think is perhaps ultimately the most powerful implication of what we're celebrating here today. We have a potential to unlock new markets that reach not just 75,000 homes, but the 130 million homes all across this country. About 70% of those homes were built before we had any energy codes, consistent energy codes in this country. You're talking about tens of millions of homes that we need to reach. And how do we do that? Too often in this town, frankly, with the backdrop behind me, we talk about whether government should be bigger or smaller. We talk about whether the private sector or the public sector is the right way to go. These ideological divides, frankly, must give way to the kind of innovative demonstration that we're having today from the Enterprise Foundation, Enterprise community, and all of the partners that Enterprise has. And what it is saying is that you all have a responsibility to lead the federal government in a way showing us, between the nonprofit sector, between Kresge and all of the foundation partners, the private sector, Home Depot, leaders like Jonathan Rose and Richard Barron that are here, you can show us the models, but we have to take it to the next level. We're the ones that have the potential to take these lessons to a scale that they can really reach tens of millions of homes. And that's not about bigger government or smaller government. That's about smart government. That's about government partnering with the private sector in the right ways to unlock markets. So how do we do that? On Monday, Vice President Biden announced the Recovery Through Retrofit partnership. And he said there are 3 clear barriers that we have to attack to get to true scale in terms of making all housing in this country more energy efficient. We need the information, powerful information that unlocks markets.